PSG are Super Cup champions. Tottenham Hotspur bottle it at the end of the game. What a game this was. So, let's get straight into it. First of all, first half, Spurs looked a lot more dangerous, making players like Richarlison look good with his runs in behind. You saw Spence and Poro overlapping. Spence looked so quick. I don't know if Hakimi was just rusty and slow today, but he was lightning quick on the left. Kudus was holding up the ball well, taking people on, being a little rat sometimes, being a dog. And the set pieces, the throw-ins from Danso, the long throw-in, something you see out of Thomas Frank back at Brentford. They looked so much better, and PSG, a couple good saves from Chevalier, really kept them in the game. They were lucky not to be down more than 1-0. And they looked just super rusty. The commentators kept saying, "Oh, they only had 6 days of preseason," and it showed. Some of the passing was just so off the mark. Players just kicking it to nobody. Try to pass it. They pass it straight in between two people. It was really bad. Dembele, Kvaratskhelia looked awful today. Dembele, other than that cross and his penalty, Jesus Christ, this guy's probably going to win the Ballon d'Or and be the worst Ballon d'Or winner of all time. Desiree Doué in the midfield looks so unbalanced. I think he grew a little bit in the end of the half. He looked a little bit better in the end of half than he did in the beginning, but he still wasn't great. Like I said, the midfield completely unbalanced. When Fabian Ruiz came on, and even Kangin Lee, it looked so much better. Zaire Emery just looked too inexperienced for this game, even though he is like a promising talent. I did not think he looked good today. He just made so many mistakes. Kimi slow, like I said. And yeah, I think the only person you could say looked dangerous in this game is Bradley Barcola, and he was taking people on and skimming them, but just had no end product. He would dribble into people sometimes. He would just dribble into nowhere sometimes, but he looked quick. He was beating people down the left wing, and he was the only outlet on offense. I thought Kvaratskhelia should have been taken off at halftime. Stayed on 10, 15 minutes into the second half, and then PSG got a little more balance, but they were down 2-0 at that point. Cudi Romero, Van de Ven, dogs off the set pieces to score. Tottenham looked so organized. The midfield looked strong. I thought Palhinha looked decent today, even after his bad preseason. I think Bentancur is a really underrated player. He just can't stay fit a lot of the time, and he's a little inconsistent sometimes, but I think he is pretty good. Like I said, Richarlison, Kudus, that combo looked pretty good today, honestly. And Tottenham looked so organized. This was a Thomas Frank team. They were so organized. They were hard to break down, and they made the game so tough for PSG. And then the 85th minute hits. Kangin Lee with a rocket to bring him back into the game. The subs were the biggest story for PSG today. Kangin Lee, Goncalo Ramos, their attack looked so much better when they had a number 9, which I think is something that they should look into, because this free-flowing three without a number 9 worked very well when Dembele was playing well and he was dropping into the midfield and he was linking everything up. But when he was off today, everything broke down, and it was so hard for them to get any production going. And they had nobody in the middle to put the ball into. They had nobody to kick it long to and hold up the play. Kvara and Dembele and Doué weren't doing anything down the wing, so you can just chuck him in behind. No, Spence would clean it up, or they wouldn't do anything with it. Even the Mumbai, or I don't know how to say his name, when that kid came on, he looked all right. He looked aggressive, but he just wasn't really doing much. Last couple minutes hit, Kangin Lee, great goal. Momentum shifts. Tottenham are on the back foot, just defending, throwing 10 men in their own box. And a great cross from Dembele and a great finish by Goncalo Ramos to level the game in the dying minutes. And it shifted the momentum entirely. Went to penalties. Vitinha misses the first penalty, pressures on PSG, and Vitinha this game looked so out of it. He just looked like he didn't have that same oomph that he had throughout the season. I understand they're rusty. They haven't played preseason, but it's like, you guys are Kvara, Vitinha, you guys are way better players than this. You guys shouldn't be struggling this much. in a game, especially a team who, yeah, they had a full preseason, but they haven't looked phenomenal. They've looked better. They got smacked 4-0 by Bayern in their last friendly, and I know it's friendlies, I know it's preseason, it's not that big a deal, but they had the fitness, but they weren't exactly firing on all cylinders like a Chelsea or another like a Barcelona who are scoring goals for fun in preseason. But yeah, Tottenham crumble. Last 10 minutes, subs were a huge impact for PSG. Chevalier makes the mistake for the Cudi Romero goal, but in the penalty shootout, he guessed the right way every time. I just don't think he was committing enough. I think he was just reacting, which is a good tactic, and it did win. I mean, it won them the shootout more because Tell missed the penalty and he got lucky saving the first one. But the last two ones, he didn't dive the right way on them. He didn't really. Pedro Porro nets one in the top, which is where you should be going, based on how Chevalier is diving. He's diving low. He's not really getting to the outside. So if you put it in the side netting or you put it in the roof of the net hard, he's not going to save it. But still did good in the shootout. I think if he didn't win the shootout, if they lost this game because of his mistake, losing it 2-1 or 2-0, the Donnarumma fanboys would be out. They would be hounding him. Oh, Donnarumma's this, he's that, which he is. He's a phenomenal keeper, honestly, and penalty shootouts is where he thrives. So I think it's ironic that it went to a penalty shootout in this game. They won, though, so who really cares? Tottenham, at the end of the day, this isn't a team that you expect to be challenging for the Prem or winning the Champions League. There's still a lot of work to be done, I think, especially in the attack when it comes to a striker, despite Richarlison playing good, despite Solanke doing very well on his penalty. I think they need something more to pair up with Kudus. You see him looking at Savinho, who would be a great addition. I just don't know where he plays, if they're going to play this 3-back with the wide fullbacks, because that's where Pedro Porro kind of shines. So do you put him as a left wing back? What does that mean for Udogie? What does that mean for Jet Spence, who looked great today, honestly? And then Eze in the midfield, someone they've been linked to because Arsenal are not making the move for him. It seems like they're just delayed and not willing to shell out the cash for him. But someone in that midfield, another creative spark in that midfield, would be a huge boost to this team. But they're not a team you expect to win the Champions League, like I said. So it's about progression. It's about getting used to the system, being a tough team to beat. I'm probably going to come out with my predictions tomorrow for the Premier League, leaving it to the last day just so we could see all the moves. Liverpool got a here we go for a defender, so, that could influence how a lot of people move. But I think Tottenham will be back as one of the better teams. I think they'll be a team that maybe they'll struggle in the Champions League. It really depends on who they play. But they're going to be tough to beat this year. And Thomas Frank is really good and underrated manager. That he won't lose games, and they have pretty good depth to the squad. I would say maybe a defender and a creator, and they have a lot of players in every position. You worry for someone like Udogie if he could stay fit. You wonder if Solanke can find his form of 2 seasons ago. You wonder if Richarlison can find any form when it comes to scoring in the Premier League. But I don't think Tottenham fans should be too worried about their season ahead. I think you should obviously be upset with this game. You should be disappointed not to win this trophy, because especially when you're just in the driver's seat, you just had to see it out. You crumble at the end. But it's not the end of the world, Coming off of winning a Europa, new manager, poor preseason in the sense of not really, scoring a lot. That's what you want to see in preseason is teams, their attack and how organized you are, when this team's going to be organized under Frank. But I wouldn't get too worried if I'm Tottenham. Just disappointed in the game. Don't be too upset about the season ahead. Be hopeful. I think they'll be a team in and around Europe, in and around that 5th to 8th spot. Maybe they could go pick up a cup or something like that, because a lot of the teams under them or in that 5 to 8 to 10 region have gotten a lot weaker, in my opinion, like a Newcastle, who will probably lose Isak, and a Villa, who haven't brought in a huge amount of quality. As for PSG, you guys are extremely lucky. They look extremely poor today for 90% of the game. The quality of these players showed out. I think Luis Enrique should be not ridiculed, but criticized for the team selection. I know you don't have João Neves. Maybe Fabian Ruiz wasn't fit enough, but I don't think the I don't think this team. I think this team looked really, really poor in the midfield. Um, the subs made a huge difference. They did well to win the game. They showed why they're the Champions League winners, champions of France. This is a good bounce back after losing the Club World Cup final 3-0 to Chelsea, but I think they should look to spice up this team somehow, maybe with a midfielder, maybe with an attacker, with a more established number 9, but I think Kyle Ramos is a good player. Um, I don't know when the French league starts, but it's not going to be difficult for them. They're the best team in that league by far. Yeah, that's about it. I'll be there tomorrow, which with Premier League predictions. Maybe I'll throw in who I think is going to win the Champions League and the Europa and whatever. But yeah, that's it for this video.